On this Friday night, the wife of the Nova Scotia mass shooter shares her story. What Lisa Banfield says she knew.
He put the gun to my head.
And why she didn't tell police before it was too late.
He said, if any police come, I'm shooting.
Memories flooding back. How families of the Air India bombing victims are reacting to the assassination of a polarizing figure.
It basically opens up the wounds which had developed a little bit of a scar over time.
Wildfire deja vu.
I lost everything down there last year.
Another nightmare for Lytton, BC, as a blaze quickly spreads near the already fire-ravaged community. Plus, lost at sea.
Bravo, bravo!
The amazing survival story of a man who says he owes his life to a kid's toy.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Neetu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Nova Scotia's Mass Casualty Commission heard from a long-awaited witness today. Lisa Banfield, the common-law spouse of the gunman responsible for the 2020 Portapique shooting, spoke publicly for the first time. During her emotional multi-hour testimony, she confessed about lying to police, but stressed she did so because she was scared for her safety. Our Callum Smith was at the proceedings today and has tonight's top story.
The inquiry hearing publicly from the gunman's spouse of 19 years, Lisa Banfield. Questions about her knowledge of Gabriel Wortman's police paraphernalia and replica RCMP cruiser. Banfield said he collected random things, but she never thought he would hurt anyone. Asked why she didn't report his illegal firearms to police.
He had the handgun by the nightstand, and he said, if any police come, I'm shooting. So when they asked me that, I didn't want them to go in because I didn't want them to get hurt.
Banfield says the gunman controlled her and physically assaulted her on several occasions over the years.
There was a couple times that he, if we had a fight, he put the gun to my head to scare me and said that he could blow off my head. So I was scared. I'm not gonna say anything.
But victims' families had high hopes to learn from Banfield's testimony.
My big question would be, why would he have targeted my brother, who was so far out of the way?
All I know is that the perpetrator knew my stepfather. The rest of it is just a show to me.
I'm tired of fighting. We're 2.5 years into this. When this started, we thought we could all sit back and just let an independent group do it, but it's not independent.
Patterson Law represents the families of 14 victims. They haven't been able to directly cross-examine Banfield due to the inquiry's trauma-informed approach. Lawyer Michael Scott says they wanted more details about April 18th and 19th, 2020, when 22 people lost their lives.
I don't know if Miss Banfield is lying. I don't know if Miss Banfield is telling the truth. I don't know if Miss Banfield is mistaken because we don't have an opportunity to ask her any questions.
They walked out before proceedings finished. Thankful for family support, Banfield says there were gaps in services she received after the rampage.
It's hard for me to say this because I know I'm here and my family's here, and there's so many people that aren't here. So I don't want to complain about what I don't have.
The inquiry resumes next week. Callum Smith, Global News, Halifax.
We are learning more tonight about the brazen daytime murder of Ripudaman Singh Malik. The 75-year-old was gunned down yesterday in a busy commercial complex in Surrey, British Columbia. Malik was a deeply polarizing figure, best known as one of 2 men acquitted in the deadly 1985 Air India terrorist bombings. Aaron McArthur has the latest on the investigation, including what police are focusing on right now.
The police investigation now focused on the people inside this white Honda. The SUV was spotted on CCTV shortly after shots were fired and was found burning several blocks away. BC's integrated homicide investigation team looking for witnesses to come forward to help identify the shooters.
And it is a white Honda CRV. It arrived about 7 a.m. and the occupants were waiting for Mr. Malik.
Malik courted controversy for more than 3 decades. Immigrating to Canada in the 1970s, he is most widely known as one of the key suspects in the bombing of Air India Flight 182 and an explosion at Tokyo's Narita Airport in 1985. Although the allegations were never proven in court, there are still questions swirling about his role in the terror plot that killed 331 people.
To this day, we have not brought people to justice. I do not doubt for a moment Mr. Malik knew more. And as I've said, that is perhaps the biggest frustration for me, is he is a man who has died, who has been killed, but he has left with his secrets.
While Malik was associated with Sikh extremism, he also worked as a successful businessman and philanthropist. His family remain adamant he be remembered for his work in the community and not for his potential involvement in Canada's worst mass murder.
The bigger part of his life was his community, his family, and the legacy he's left with Khalsa Schools, Khalsa Credit Union, 5 kids, 8 grandkids. I mean, that's his legacy.
While the RCMP are confident this murder was targeted, there are questions about why Malik was gunned down. Journalist Ripudiman Singh isn't convinced it has to do with Air India.
We need to look into all possibilities. Investigators need to keep their mind open. We cannot 100% say that he has been killed by a certain group of people.
Ripudiman Singh Malik was 75 years old. The investigation into his death still in its infancy. Aaron McArthur, Global News.
The Air India bombings remain the largest mass killing in Canada's history. 331 people were killed, including 268 Canadians. Families who lost loved ones in the terrorist attack say Malik's death won't bring them any closure. Mike Drolet reports.
The victims' families have waited and suffered for 37 years in their quest for answers. Ripudiman Singh Malik was acquitted in the bombing of Air India Flight 182, but remained a divisive figure in the South Asian community. Now, with Malik's death, Deepak Khandelwal's faint hope for justice has dimmed even more.
You know, his death, however it came by, does take a lot more of the secrets that he had to the grave, and which we will never know about.
Khandelwal visits one of Air India's 2 Toronto memorials every year and thinks often of his 2 sisters, Chandra, who is 21, and Manju, just 19, and the promise of a future pharmacist and med student lost.
I lost my wife of over 20 years.
Dr. Bal Gupta appeared frequently during the Air India inquiry. It's an understatement to say the 37 years since the plane went down have been hard.
It basically opens up the wounds which had developed a little bit of a scar over time.
He hasn't thought of Malik often, preferring instead the memory of his late wife Ramwathi. But he says regardless what anybody thought of Malik, his murder isn't justice.
Even though Mr. Malik was a suspect, prime suspect in Air India tragedy, I have my sympathies for his children. His children are suffering the same feelings, grief, which I and my children felt when my wife was taken away by an act of terrorism.
The Air India bombing has defined the lives of many of the survivors, and decades of court cases and inquiries have taken their toll. Khandelwal has the added burden of knowing he was supposed to be on that flight.
You think about it every day. It never does go away. People always ask, is there closure? There never really is closure. And, you know, you get triggers like what happened yesterday that continue to kind of put your system in shock.
She was the third-year pharmacy student, U of S.
He doesn't expect that
U of S, second year.
To ever change. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Nearly 1 year after the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan, the Canadian government's special immigration program for Afghans is nearing capacity. Many of those who cooperated with Canadian forces and aid agencies remain in hiding, looking for a way out of the country and out of danger. As Abigail Bimman reports, advocates and those with families still in that country are calling on Ottawa to do more to get people out.
I'm feeling guilty because, you know, I'm safe here in Canada, but because of me, my family is at risk.
This Afghan-Canadian human rights activist has been pressing the Canadian government about her 6 family members still in Afghanistan for nearly a year.
We had to just put them on fire and bury whatever we could, but then, you know, to just destroy the entire documents that we had from our work. So It's it's constantly a fear. They are living in fear.
We've agreed to conceal her identity because her family is living under threat of the Taliban. They applied to be part of Canada's special immigration program for people with a lasting connection to Canada, such as interpreters, former employees, and their families. They filled out lengthy paperwork, but still haven't had anything but auto responses from the immigration department.
I feel betrayed, to be honest. Extremely disappointed.
The program opened a year ago and promised to accept 18,000 people. Now the immigration minister's office is trying to push back on reports it's closing. The Government of Canada has not closed the special immigration program. Of 18,000 spots available through the program, we have received over 15,000 applications. IRCC continues to send out invitations to apply to additional referrals. But the government concedes there's enough interest to surpass the 18,000 number, and there are only 18,000 spots.
To suggest that the program is still open when all the spots are spoken for, the 18,000 spots are spoken for, they are lying to themselves and they're lying to the public.
We shouldn't give up. We should still push for an extension.
Lauren Oates is calling for a 12-month extension and double the number of spots. She has 17 staff members still in Afghanistan who have heard nothing from the government.
They're at high risk. They all worked on programs funded by Global Affairs Canada, by the Canadian government. And they all submitted their inquiries to the Special Immigration Measures Program from sometime between late July and mid-August of last year.
It's a shameful period for us. And I have to say, regretfully, that I feel the government has handled the entire file very badly. It's taken too long. We've left people waiting. We don't provide information. And there's really no excuse for that.
So many people left waiting, their families' lives in the balance. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
More monkeypox patients are popping up across Canada, mirroring the rise in cases seen globally. Canada has confirmed nearly 500 cases since the virus emerged as part of an unusual outbreak in May. But between July 4th and 13th, cases spiked to more than 170, a 59% increase in just a week. As Jamie McArthur reports, experts say it is time for all Canadians to know the signs and be vigilant.
Monkeypox first presents with symptoms similar to the flu, fever, headache, swollen lymph nodes, but there is a distinct sign that sets it apart: these skin lesions. Indicators doctors say the public needs to start recognizing.
We need to increase our efforts, if you will, to, nationally to get this under control.
Quebec continues to have the largest number of cases. Saskatchewan recorded its first patient Thursday, and both BC and Ontario are seeing increases. There are now more than 10,000 cases worldwide.
Everything I touch has to stay in this room.
Haran Talane was hospitalized in the UK for what he says was a severe bout of monkeypox.
The lesion started on my nose only. I didn't have any lesions until I got into the hospital. A couple of days after that, the lesions appeared on my hands and on my feet.
Confirmed cases of monkeypox have largely been detected in men. In Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, vaccination clinics have been offered to communities at heightened risk. Globally, there have been shortages of the shot, including in the U.S., which has seen soaring demand in New York City and California. The White House announced an order of 1.1 million doses. Here, officials have been tight-lipped about supply. And although Ontario confirmed its first female patient this week, experts say it's not time yet to mass vaccinate.
It's also making sure people understand there might be behavioral changes or certain activities that people should be aware of that would put them at greater risk. It really requires a certain type of close, intimate contact, physical contact from someone who is infected with monkeypox.
A virus the World Health Organization is actively assessing to determine whether to declare it of greater global concern. Jamie McArthur, Global News, Toronto.
The scramble for safety in a town already ravaged by wildfire. Coming up, the emotional evacuations as people are once again forced to flee a growing blaze near Lytton, BC. Just over a year ago, most of the town of Lytton in British Columbia's Fraser Canyon burnt to the ground when a huge, fast-moving wildfire swept through. Now, the area's remaining residents are again being evacuated as another fire is raging. Global's Kamil Kermali has the latest from near Lytton. Kamil?
Neetu, the fire continues to rage on, now 4 times larger than it was 24 hours ago. Where we are right now is a Lytton First Nation reserve, and you can see behind me here how close the fire has gotten to some of these homes. And some people here say they're not leaving until the fire is right at their doorstep. Meanwhile, further west, people have already been affected by these fires and lost their homes and have had to come here to stay with family.
Oh, I heard our home and my brother's is burnt.
Gone. How does that make you feel knowing that?
What do you think? Everything's gone. Our whole livelihood. It's horrifying.
I'm just glad they all made it out.
It was a close call, do you think?
Yeah, they said when they're just leaving their home, the flames were in the back behind the house.
Lytton First Nation has issued an evacuation order for some of its reserves. It says the number of structures lost to the fire has jumped from 3 this morning to now sitting in the double digits. The regional district here says an additional 24 homes have also been evacuated. So far, the fire has stayed away from Lytton itself, which is east across the river from this fire. Instead, it's moving north, driven by strong winds.
Today, we're expecting another low to move in and bring winds 40 to 50 kilometers an hour, gusting 60. So wind will continue to be a challenge today. As well, the terrain is really steep and poses a dangerous activity to firefighters.
Evacuees have been sent north to the town of Lillooet to an evacuation shelter, and some are staying in the surrounding hotels, but space is running out fast, leaving people wondering where they'll go next. Neetu?
Kamil Kermali reporting near Lytton, BC. Thanks, Kamil. Next, a thorny visit. How the U.S. president's historic trip to Saudi Arabia sparked backlash. With his domestic agenda on the rocks, U.S. President Joe Biden made a historic journey today aboard Air Force One, flying direct from Israel to Saudi Arabia. But that symbolic gesture overshadowed by criticism over Biden's willingness to overlook Saudi Arabia's human rights record and how desperately Biden needs cooperation from around the region on a number of key issues. Jackson Prosco reports.
For President Joe Biden, each step of this trip involves walking a political and diplomatic tightrope, from a fist bump with the man accused of approving the murder of Jamal Khashoggi to closed-door meetings over a long list of mutual concerns.
But the basic, most elemental thing is to send a message that America is not pivoting to other parts of the world, that we're still sticking around.
It's not that easy. As a presidential candidate, Biden declared Saudi Arabia a pariah state and was reluctant to engage with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at all. As president, he now needs the Saudis to increase oil production as he faces a political crisis at home over gas prices and inflation. Biden insists he did not waver and raised Khashoggi's murder with the Saudis before any other business.
He basically said that he was not personally responsible for it. I indicated I thought he was.
The 4-day trip signals a larger shift in Middle East dynamics. Biden became the first American president to fly directly to Saudi Arabia from Israel, at a time when he's hoping to unite 2 former adversaries to confront a common threat in Iran. Biden's trip to the region also included a visit to the West Bank, where he met Palestinian leaders and reaffirmed support for a 2-state solution eventually.
Even if the ground is not ripe at this moment to restart negotiations, the United States and my administration will not give up on trying to bring the Palestinians and Israelis and both sides closer together.
It's in Saudi Arabia where Biden is looking for the biggest gains and facing the most peril. A delicate visit with a tenuous ally. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Firefighters and rescue teams searching the wreckage of a number of buildings in the Ukrainian city of Mykolaiv after another round of Russian missile strikes. Ukrainian defense officials say 10 buildings were hit. At least 4 people were hurt in the early morning attacks. But firefighters managed to rescue a puppy from the badly damaged building. The Ukrainian government says their recapture of Snake Island is allowing for cargo ships carrying grain to enter the Black Sea. Video posted by the Ukraine State Border Service shows cargo ships being escorted by Coast Guard vessels down the Danube River to be loaded with grain. Ukraine says 16 ships have already started their journeys, while more than 90 others are waiting their turn. Coming up, a man survives 18 hours lost at sea thanks to an assist from an unlikely flotation device. A tourist in Greece is sharing an amazing story of survival after he was swept out to sea.
Bravo, bravo!
The man, identified only as Ivan from Macedonia, was swimming in the sea with two friends when they were caught in a powerful current and dragged far offshore. The Greek Coast Guard was notified, and after a search, the men were declared lost at sea. But Ivan got lucky. As he was drifting, he spotted a soccer ball bobbing in the waves and grabbed it. He clung to the ball for 18 hours before being spotted by a Greek Air Force helicopter, and a rescue operation was launched. It turns out the owners of the ball recognized it in Greek news coverage of the rescue. It belongs to two little boys who lost it in the waves 10 days before while playing on a beach some 130 kilometers from where Ivan was found. One of the other men who was washed away was also found safe, while the third is still missing. And that is Global National for this Friday. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is this pod of pelicans in the Heritage Hills wetlands in Sherwood Park, Alberta. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow.